Wanting a relationship and being ready for one are two completely different things. Most people spend years looking for the right partner without ever asking whether they're emotionally prepared to become one. That's how you end up meeting someone who might be incredible and then slowly losing them. Not because you didn't love each other, but because you weren't emotionally ready for the kind of relationship that you're asking for. And sometimes the greatest heartbreak isn't choosing the wrong person. It's actually meeting the right person before you're ready to build something healthy together. So have you ever found yourself thinking, I just want to find my person? Maybe you've prayed for it. Maybe you've manifested it. Maybe you've imagined what it would feel like to finally meet someone who truly sees you. And maybe you've watched friends get engaged and married and build families. And all the while, you're just wondering, when is it my turn? There's nothing wrong with wanting that. We were created for connection. It's neurobiology, and most of us long to love and be loved. But here's something that I've noticed over and over again. People spend years asking, where do I find the right person? And very few people stop to ask, if I met the right person tomorrow, would I actually know how to build a healthy relationship with them? Meaning, are you also the right person? Those are very different questions. Because wanting love isn't the same as having the emotional capacity to sustain love. And I've watched people finally meet someone kind and emotionally available and self-aware and genuinely interested in them and still completely sabotage the relationship. Not because they wanted to, but old fears showed up, old attachment wounds showed up, and conflict felt very threatening, vulnerability felt terrifying, and trust was completely unfamiliar. They wanted love with every part of themselves, but they weren't yet ready for what healthy love required of them. And that's what today's conversation is about. Because I don't want you to spend your life wondering where the right person is and miss the opportunity to become the kind of person who can actually build the relationship that you're hoping for. If we've never met, I'm Jenn Pinkerton, and I'm a psychotherapist and a connection expert. Today, we're going to talk about the difference between wanting a relationship and actually being ready for one. Because those two concepts, they're not the same thing. And understanding the difference could completely change the way that you are dating and the kind of relationship you're able to build. So the first habit I want to talk about is being ready means you want to build a relationship, not be rescued by one. So one of the biggest misconceptions about love is that the right relationship will finally make us feel whole. And we tell ourselves, when I find the right person, I'll finally feel secure. I'm going to feel safe. I'm going to feel happy. I'll finally feel enough. I'll finally stop feeling lonely. And the problem is that when we expect a relationship to rescue us from feelings that we've never learned to navigate ourselves, we unintentionally place a very big burden on that relationship. And it's a burden that it was never designed to carry. Healthy relationships absolutely bring comfort, and they bring joy. They bring healing experiences together. But they were never meant to become the sole source of your identity or your worth or your emotional stability or your happiness. That is simply too much pressure for any other human being. People who are emotionally ready for a relationship don't expect another person to complete them. They invite another person to share a life they've already begun building. That doesn't mean they have everything all figured out. It doesn't mean they never feel lonely. It means that they are no longer looking for someone to save them and save them from themselves. They're looking for someone to grow alongside them. And that is a very different posture. Because one says, please fix what is broken inside of me. And the other says, I'm doing my work, and I'd love to build something beautiful with you. Those aren't the same thing at all. It's a very different relationship. One's going to be built from dependency. The other is built from partnership. And partnership is where healthy love thrives. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering, am I actually ready for the kind of relationship that I say I want, that I tell everybody I want? I created something to help you answer that question. It's called the Pinkerton Relational Health Index, or the PRHI. And this is a free assessment. It helps you better understand what you're bringing to the table, your own relational health, your communication style, your patterns, your emotional safety, your attachment tendencies, conflict style boundaries, and even intimacy, and the habits that you bring into every single relationship. Because healthy relationships, they don't begin with finding the perfect partner. They actually begin with becoming a healthier relational partner. So you can find the link below. And I think you'll discover something about yourself that might completely change the way you approach love. So habit 2, being ready means you can stay connected when relationships stop feeling easy. So a big myth about relationships is that when you meet the right person, then everything should feel easy. Of course, absolutely not, right? No anxiety, no conflict, no disappointment, no uncertainty. But healthy relationships aren't built because everything just feels perfect and easy. They're built because two people know how to stay connected when things become really hard or uncomfortable. And that's emotional maturity. One of the questions I ask people is this: what happens inside of you when the relationship stops feeling perfect? Because that's where readiness begins to show itself. If your partner needs space, what happens inside of you? If they disagree with you, what happens inside of you? If they disappoint you, if they forget something really important, if they say something that hurts your feelings, what happens inside of you? Do you become curious? Do you immediately assume instead that the relationship is falling apart? Many people think that they're looking for love, but what they're actually looking for is certainty. We want guarantees in life. We want a relationship that never activates their fears. But the problem is that relationship doesn't exist. Every healthy relationship will eventually activate your wounds, your insecurities. And that's not because it's unhealthy. It's because intimacy exposes us. Vulnerability asks us to trust. We're going to risk disappointment. We're going to allow another imperfect human, just like we're imperfect, to be close enough to us to hurt us. And that's part of love. Being ready doesn't mean you're not going to feel anxious. It means you're not going to let every uncomfortable feeling become the evidence that the relationship is wrong. So a big difference that I see between people who are truly ready for healthy love and people who are not ready at all is this: emotionally ready people become curious about their reactions. Emotionally unready people become controlled by them. So instead of saying, my partner hasn't texted me back, maybe they're losing interest. Maybe they don't want to be with me anymore. What does this mean? They pause and they say, what story am I telling myself right now? So instead of immediately withdrawing after an argument, they stay. Instead of assuming conflict means incompatibility and the relationship is done, they recognize that conflict is inevitable. And it's often an invitation to better understand each other on a deeper level. A healthy question that you can ask yourself while you're dating is, am I reacting to what's happening right now? Or am I reacting to what I'm afraid might happen? Those are rarely the same thing. Because when you're emotionally ready for a relationship, then you stop expecting another person to remove all discomfort from your life. You actually recognize that discomfort isn't always danger. Sometimes it's simply growth. And growth is uncomfortable, but so necessary. Every living thing either grows or dies. Love asks us to become more patient, more vulnerable, more accountable, more emotionally honest with ourselves and others. And that is not easy. But it is how healthy relationships are built. And being ready for love doesn't mean you're no longer afraid. It means you've learned not to let your fear make your decisions for you. And that's a new way of entering a relationship. All right, habit 3. Being ready means you're looking for a partner, not someone to heal your past. And I think this is a hard truth. People have to face this idea because sometimes what we're calling love is actually longing to finally feel chosen, longing to feel desired, longing to feel enough, longing to feel safe, and longing to finally receive the love we didn't consistently experience growing up. So please hear me when I say this. There's nothing wrong with those longings. They're deeply human. They're usually a sign of some growth opportunities for us, and we all carry them in different ways. But the problem begins when we unknowingly hand over those longings to another person and expect them to heal the wounds they didn't even create. Now, they didn't do this. This was before them. So if we say, I just want someone who makes me feel secure, I just want someone who makes me feel worthy, I just want someone who makes me feel loved, healthy relationships absolutely can contribute to those experiences, but they cannot become solely responsible for creating them. Because eventually, your partner is going to disappoint you, and they're going to have a bad day. They're going to forget something that matters to you. They're going to hurt your feelings. They're going to misunderstand you. They're going to be imperfect. And if your emotional stability depends entirely on them getting everything right, well, the relationship will become incredibly fragile. And one difficult conversation will feel like rejection. And one disagreement will feel like abandonment. And one missed text message will feel like proof that something is wrong. And this is not because your partner actually created any of those feelings, but because they touched on something, they triggered something that already existed, they activated it. And so one of the biggest shifts I see in people who are emotionally ready for love is that they stop expecting their partner to constantly prove that they're lovable. Instead, they begin building a life where they already believe their worth isn't up for debate, because the only person that can identify or define your worth is you. So are we going to date for desperation? Or are we going to date from stability? If you're asking, will you complete me? We have a problem. We need to be asking, can you build something meaningful with me? And those are two different relationships and different questions. One is going to be built on dependency. One is going to be built on partnership. And partnership requires two people who are each willing to take responsibility for their own healing. Now, let me be clear. I am not saying that you have to be perfectly healed before you deserve love. I mean, if that were true, none of us would ever be in a relationship. Healing it's not linear. This is a lifelong growth opportunity to be the best version of ourselves. So healthy relationships absolutely become places where we continue healing. But there's a difference between healing with someone and expecting someone to do the healing for you. Emotionally ready people understand that distinction. They don't expect their partner to constantly rescue them from old wounds. They invite their partner into a life where both people are growing and learning and continuing to be a best version of themselves and healing together. And that's the kind of relationship that lasts, because neither person is carrying the impossible responsibility of becoming each other's emotional savior. They're simply walking alongside one another. And I think that is one of the most beautiful definitions of healthy love. Not two people completing each other. That's a fallacy. It doesn't exist. But two whole people continually helping each other become healthier versions of themselves. So if today's conversation made you realize something and you thought about, maybe I've been spending more time looking for the right relationship than actually preparing myself to build one, then I want you to know you're not alone. And the truth is, most of us were never taught how to show up, how to create healthy relationships. We didn't get an owner's manual. We learned by watching our parents. We learned through heartbreak. We learned through societal information. We learned through trial and error. And unfortunately, many of us learn very unhealthy patterns that quietly, or even not so quietly, follow us into adulthood. And that's exactly why I created my Relationship Blueprint Intensive. So whether you're single or dating or engaged or married, this 30-day transformational program, it's designed to help you become the kind of person who creates emotionally healthy relationships. So we'll work on emotional safety, communication, conflict, attachment, nervous system work, regulation, boundaries, etc., intimacy, and the relationship patterns that do quietly or not so quietly shape every connection that you have. Because the healthiest relationships don't begin when you meet the right person. They begin when you become ready to build one. So if you're ready to stop repeating the same relationship patterns and start creating something different, then I'll put that information in the description below. So our last thought here is going to be this. The relationship you've been waiting for isn't built the day you meet the right person. It's built in the person you become before they ever arrive. Because wanting love is easy. Healthy love, building healthy love. This requires emotional courage and self-awareness and accountability. It requires healing. And the beautiful thing is this, those are all things that you can begin working on today. Because the goal isn't simply to find someone who is ready for a healthy relationship. The goal is to become someone who is ready for one, too. So that's where healthy love is going to begin. If today's conversation made you stop and honestly ask yourself, am I actually ready for the kind of relationship that I want, that I so deeply crave? And the next question might even be more important. What if you're already in a relationship and now you're thinking about leaving? Before you make one of the biggest decisions of your life, there's one question that I believe every person needs to ask. Because sometimes leaving the actual relationship you're in, and sometimes maybe you're trying to leave a pattern that's actually living inside of you. So in the next video, we're going to talk about that and talk about the one question to ask yourself before you decide to leave a relationship. And it has the potential to change not only this relationship, but every relationship that comes after it. So I'll see you in the next video.